Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting this evening to order. We'll start taking attendance. Here, Alan.
Yes, sir.
I saw you sneaking around. John? Greg? Michelle? Jim? Stephanie? Jen? Lisa? Michael? You are? Julie? And Peter. We have a full house. Great. Okay, moving to the next item on the agenda is public comment. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda passes. Moving to the next item, reports and recognition. I have just one short comment. The digital committee met for the first time last week. Megan alluded to it, not alluded to it, she mentioned it in her weekly review. I'd say there's a lot of enthusiasm around the subject. It's rather broad. It's probably going to be our biggest challenge is to narrow that back in. So the next time we meet, we'll, as a board, we'll talk more about that as that becomes an item on the agenda. So with that, Megan.
All right, good evening. Well, we have been busy. So some of the things that we've been doing, our administrators are currently working with our teachers on evaluations and coming up with some of those goals that we have. We're also making certain we're looking at what are some of those big bets that we're doing, separating out the results from the decisions, because sometimes really good decisions don't always have the best results. So making certain we're always evaluating. The Shipauge's Parents' Night Out was a wonderful success. It was the first annual, so when they call it the first annual, you know they're looking to continue that. We also at Booth Free and Burnham Schools, they have connected with the Roxbury Bridgewater Garden Club and are focusing on their gardens this year. The Booth Free students plant in early spring in the community garden across the street, and the Burnham students plant in our own school gardens. So they have lots of vegetables. So if you ever go to Burnham, they push the vegetables. And also we had our first selectman, Curtis Freed, who joined the Burnham 3rd through 5th graders to harvest, and I believe he left with a lot of vegetables. I want to showcase our sports, what we have going on. Our cross country won their dual meet against Housatonic and are undefeated in the Berkshire League meets this year. Both the boys and girls soccer teams had their first win versus Thomaston, and the boys went into overtime in the other two games. And we had one loss, one tie. And we're not going to talk about field hockey. They had a tough week. So we do want to also highlight Wilson King, who remains in contention for the National Merit Scholars. So we're very proud. He's working hard with the counselor, with the principal, and with his parents to complete his application. So really, it's an initial screening, but to even get this far is fantastic. And also Allison Parker received a letter of commendation from the National Merit Scholarship Program as well. So kudos to our students who continue to thrive academically. Shipauge's open house was revised based on the parent feedback. So our administrators are really looking at the feedback that was given when we did the panorama survey that the board had initiated last year, and things that they changed the open house so there's a middle school and a high school open house in order to accommodate and target some of our answers to our families. Additionally, updates that are happening out of our elementary schools are in direct response to perseverance and making certain that our parents know how to support us in the schools. So communication is up, and our grade 10 and 11 students will take their PSATs on October 10th, and 21 additional freshmen have been elected to take the test. I don't know whether to call them lucky or we're going to go with lucky. Thank you.
Questions, Jim?
Have elected. So they are lucky enough to do this. Yes. Oh, no, we don't force. Thank you.
Any further questions? Jen, did you have your hand up? Careful. Greg, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a request to make. I was wondering, because I have another thing that I have to go to this evening, and in case the presentations, numbers 1, 2, and 3, run longer than I can be here, I wonder if we could move number 4 up the list so I could make my presentation, just in case I can't stay for the rest of it.
Yeah, I tell you what, since we have guests here, why don't we, if we're going to move the agenda around, do you mind if we do the agri-science presentation next? Yours is a short one? Okay. Go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your flexibility, and I am going to be announcing our guests, so I want to make sure we're going in the order. But today I'm going to share with you the enrollment numbers for this year's AP courses, as well as the results from the spring AP tests. So you did receive in your packets the information that was shared, and you will notice that our AP options continue to increase. This year we added statistics and language and composition, and you can see the numbers of students who are enrolled in these specific courses, and it does include virtual high school courses. So you'll see 1 or 2 students that have opted to enroll for a virtual high school AP course, and that's also indicated on this list. At the bottom of the page, there are specific details regarding how many students are taking a number of AP courses. And the majority of students who are taking AP are taking at least 2 and more courses. We do have an excitement on behalf of our students. They definitely do want to stretch themselves. You will notice that over half of the juniors and over half of our current seniors are enrolled in AP courses this year. And there are some quite ambitious who are taking 4 and 5 AP courses. The second and third page outline our current results from the most recent AP tests in the spring, but the previous years are also shown here. So the column that is color-coded in orange is the most recent data that we received. I want to just go over some of these. As you can see, there are areas where students excel and do very well on the AP test results. And there are other areas that we are looking into that we would like to see an increase in the number of students who are able to acquire a 3, 4, or a 5. We do welcome students who have taken prerequisite courses to challenge themselves and take an AP class, so we don't close the door to students, but we also began requiring in 2016 that all students taking AP also sit for the AP exam. So that was a recent change in practice. We are undergoing an internal review. I am working closely with teachers and administrators to examine multiple layers of impact to assist our students moving forward. We review grading, the requirement to sit through the AP exam, as well as professional learning opportunities offered at Taft. For the past 5 years, every summer, I have teachers attending Taft. And it's usually a 1 or 2 week intensive, all day long training that does help the teachers in their AP instruction. Also want to recognize a couple of things. For this past year, Modern European History was also an ECE course, which is an early college experience where students do get UConn credit. There were 2 students who opted to take the AP test. That's why in orange you see 2 students. but I did put out in the margin that there were 6 students who opted for the ECE credit who did not take the AP test, and that option is provided to students in these dual enrollment courses. In calculus, all 6 students took the AP test, even though it was a dual enrollment course. And the English Lit and Composition, there were 2 separate sections this past year, so you don't see ECE for English Lit and Comp here because those students were not in the AP course. The 11 students noted here did take the AP exam. Our goal is to bridge the difficulties required of the AP course experience and the AP test and provide additional assistance to help students maximize their results. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes.
So with the classes that have ECE,
Yes.
in terms of how Connecticut, the accountability scores,
Yes.
so these students are seen as having enrolled in the AP class, that's a good thing.
Correct.
Right. But in terms of achieving a certain test score, they don't show up on
Not
that.
for EC
In fact,
exclusively.
worse, they show up as what, not
So-
taking the test?
No, they're
Therefore,
not
is it a decrement?
connected. One is not dependent of the other. They are 2 separate indicators. So we do get credit for students who enroll in AP or dual enrollment AP ECE. A separate indicator has to do with the number of students who acquire a 345 on the AP test or meet benchmark on the ACT or SAT. All of those are coupled in an indicator. But what we don't get credit for is the grade that students get in that UConn course. That is not accounted for, but it does not hurt us
Okay.
per se, okay?
Right.
Yes.
Michael?
Teresa, a lot of really positive trends when you're looking at the data. So kudos to Chapag staff, teachers, a lot to be proud of. For example, if you're just looking at the raw numbers of students taking AP courses, it's really going up dramatically from year to year. And in particular, if you look at a few courses, it's even more dramatic. For example, biology and AP Euro. And I'm wondering thoughts on what's moving those numbers up so dramatically.
Certainly. So modern European history, you will see we had to have 2 sections this year of that particular course, as well as the biology. Now, we did allow juniors to have options for AP, so it wasn't just 1 year that they were allowed to take the modern European history or ECE. So that helped with enrollment numbers. And there is an interest in biology. There really is. So we'll continue to add more. You know, we're hoping to every year add at least an additional course that is an AP course.
Yeah, it's exciting. One area of personal concern, and you know I'm a big advocate for our AP program here. I think it's wonderful, and the choices that it's giving students and the rigor that it's providing students, I think those are all positive things. But when we're looking at the numbers of students who are taking 4 or 5 APs, that kind of signals a little bit of a warning to me. I think it's wonderful when students want to challenge themselves, but as we know that high school is more than just academics, and I'm wondering if that's taking a toll on students. I mean, certainly anecdotally, I know of individual students that have done that and done that successfully, but I'm wondering if that's something that you and the staff are looking at as well.
So absolutely, there are discussions that occur with the school counselors and based on teacher recommendations and dialogue. And you're right, there are students that once junior year is over, they realize I only have 1 more high school year. And if I really aspire to a certain college of preference and I do research and I realize, ooh, I really need to add more to my course load, it does shift in that child's mind that they are willing to put in that extra time because it's that meaningful to them. Like they realize my 9 months are going to be up. I don't have yet another opportunity. And so we don't see students falling apart, but we definitely will have an honest discussion if we see that perhaps it's too much. We don't want a child to reach a breaking point either. But there are students, for example, they might double up on math. We do have students, they could be taking AP Stats here at Chapag and AP Calculus BC virtually. But that's the aspiration of that child. So as long as the child is saying, this is really what I want to do, I am willing to put in that time, we're not going to prevent them from challenging themselves.
John?
Just more or less out of curiosity, I know last year the AP course psychology was a topic because of the success rate. This year I see a pretty good improvement, although with 23 students, only 22% achieved the 3, 4, and 5. What is going on with that class? There is a high interest, but the success rate isn't that great.
So when I reference we're doing an internal review, we are certainly looking into that because we have concerns as well, and we want to make sure that we can bridge that gap for students. So we're getting student input as well as working with the teachers and the administrators.
Now, was this the course where they also got college credit?
Well, that depends on individual university. This is not an ECE course, if that's what you're talking about. It is not a
Tied to
UConn
that.
early college experience, no.
And the second question is on the VHS program.
Yes.
Not a huge interest, and you can see too that in 2 out of the 5 courses, the success rate isn't that great. But is this something that's gaining momentum, or?
I would say virtual high school is gaining momentum. It is difficult to take a course online. It's much better to have your peers around you, to have a teacher that you can go to that is there every single day. So it is difficult to take an AP online course.
So that explains the small numbers.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Teresa.
Next on the agenda.
Well, I thought you were going to introduce our guests.
I am. I just want to make sure. I didn't know if you
Okay,
needed
no, go ahead.
to announce the next item on the agenda.
I'm going to let you do.
So it is my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Ms. Travato, our agri-science educator and coordinator. She brings tremendous energy to our district. She impressed her colleagues at the convocation last month, and she has been nonstop since she was hired. Ms. Travato is currently also teaching an exploratory agri-science course for our 7th and 8th graders. We have also been continuously working closely to develop the curriculum for our agri-science program. This evening you will learn about the components of an agri-science education, and you will hear from first-hand agri-science graduates. Ms. Travato will also provide you with more details regarding all the work that occurs behind the scenes to ensure we are ready for opening day in the fall. At this time, please sit back and enjoy.
Thank you, Teresa. Do we have to turn that on from? Thank you. Great, thank you. Hello, everybody, and I am so happy to be here. And thank you all for having me today. So, as we commence this journey, I want to share with you a little bit about what the agri-science experience is here at Chippewa. And what I've come to realize when I first stepped through the doors at Chippewa was that the essence of what Chippewa offers is really at the core of what agri-science offers. And I'm here tonight to share what we are working on and what the agri-science program is and will become. Some technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, that one's working. The other one wasn't working. Thank you. So as I walked around to classrooms and in common areas, I saw this poster that was a common theme throughout everywhere I looked. And as I looked at it, I realized, wow, this is amazing because, again, at our core of agri-science, Chippewa is already doing this. Chippewa is already doing the experiences of our three-circle model, which I'm going to talk about tonight. And so that's what I was so impressed with, and how amazing fit this agri-science program is going to be for the existing experience that already is here. So in agri-science, there's what they call a three-circle model. And a three-circle model, this is what makes up a complete and holistic program for FFA students. And FFA students goes hand in hand with agri-science. And the three-circle model is actually class and lab, FFA, and it's the leadership of the supervised agriculture experience. And I'm going to share with you what that all looks like. So what is class and lab? The class and lab is where students are exploring by doing in the content areas, whichever pathway they decide to progress down. They learn by doing, by applying technology, by applying engineering, math skills, science, every single day in different aspects in every form. I just wanted to share with you just a little bit of what they do, and they explore their own imaginations and they take risks every single day. The upper left-hand corner, they were in an Eastern States Exposition competition where they actually, my students had to compete against the entire East Coast. And they actually took a lot of risks that week where they had to explore deer-resistant plants for landscape. They learned by doing and learning how to use tools and mechanisms and CAD programs that they actually had to design with in order to make this come to life. The upper right-hand corner is actually a past student of mine who actually competed at the National Agri-Science Competition and won a gold. She competed first at UConn, and then she competed at Nationals because she had innovation, and she took a risk, and she performed, and did experimentation utilizing bacteria at the microbial level. The bottom right-hand corner is actually showing two past students, and this is what we're going to bring to Chippewa, and that's why I'm sharing this with you today. The bottom right is actually two students that won at the agriculture experiment station doing agri-science experiment. One made an innovation where they were taking and doing holistic creations to be utilized in a veterinary setting. So what's an SAE? If I use that word, that acronym, people don't usually understand what that is. The students are going to do their SAE today. And their SAE is they are actually taking and being tailored in an experience that complements their agriculture experience in the classroom. Whether it's the plant systems, the animal systems, the power, technical, and structural systems, or food science. They actually, outside of the school day, will explore, whether it be internships, whether it be their own entrepreneurships where they're showing their business plan. For example, the upper left-hand corner is one of my past presidents who was explaining her business plan. And she was actually selling product that was created right in our own greenhouse to the public. the upper right-hand corner, they do participation and collaboration in the public for the community. There was actually a class that was taught to the public on the actual making of products for industry. It's my daughter, so thank you. Yes, so she was very proud that evening about her. That's her wreath she made. She was very proud, and we experienced this not with the teachers being the leader at that point, but the students taking what they learned in the classroom and applying it to the community, which is what I get so excited to see, because I'm watching these students become leaders right in front of my face, and they're having people look at them and ask them questions. How do I apply this knowledge? And that's what they took from the classroom, and then they took into their own world. And that is part of what makes them great. The bottom left-hand corner, a student there is actually using an app. In his supervised agriculture experience, he was actually collecting data on native plants and also invasive species. He was using a plant app to help him catalog and guide his collection for his supervised agriculture experience. The bottom right, actually, that student there is now in college going to be a surgeon. And I was a past advisor and teacher of hers. And this is, again, the stuff we are going to be bringing to Chipawg's classrooms. She created in her own garage a mechanical device that would actually capture and monitor the salts that are put on our roads every winter and seeing the detrimental effect it has. And DuPont was looking at her product that she actually innovated. She made this product, and DuPont was looking at it to say, what exactly are you doing here? And it was pretty remarkable, and she won first place at nationals. What is the FFA? So the FFA is remarkable to me because it brings our students what they're already doing in humanities and it lets them apply it in another avenue. So our classrooms here, to be able to be integrated in different areas and levels with all the different curriculums that already exist in Chipawg, is pretty epic to me. And with FFA, it's a leadership organization that reaches truly from Alaska to the Virgin Islands to Maine to Hawaii. And it's pretty remarkable that we have this three-circle model part to be offered to our students. So with that, I have two special guests. Current state president of the FFA, Michael Wetherill, and national FFA candidate-elect, Zachary Duda, and they're both here, and they're going to be able to share with you what their experiences are now that they're at the college level, as they went through a program not unlike the one that we are unveiling here. So thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zachary Duda. I went to Nonawag High School, so I was part of what we call the Woodbury FFA chapter, and I am currently a student at the University of Connecticut studying agriculture and natural resources. And as Mr. Travato very nicely stated, I am our state's national FFA officer candidate. That'll all make a lot more sense in about half a minute. And I'm joined today by one of my former teammates and now the state president of Connecticut FFA, Michael Wetherill, who comes from the Killingly chapter. So we both had a nice long haul across this beautiful state to come visit you tonight. Now, we were asked to talk a little bit about our stories, but first on the face value of what this program means for students and what it means for our country and our world moving forward. I couldn't help but notice as I looked around at the 13 of you that there are 2 of you without a computer and 1 without a cell phone or a computer. And I don't mean to ostracize in any way, shape, or form. Don't worry. It's very good to be unique. But the point that I make with that is technology is rapidly advancing. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the documentary called Waiting for Superman. It's an educational documentary, and Bill Gates was interviewed. And in that documentary, Bill Gates stated that by 2050, there will be 150 million available jobs in the United States of America, but 50 million people qualified enough to fill them. That's terrifying. Because when you think about the progress of society, you want people to fall into those positions that know what they're doing. And now in the face of agriculture, we, in the agricultural industry, make up 11% of America's workforce. That's just over 21 million jobs. And I know agriculture isn't necessarily thought of when you think of science, technology, engineering, and math, the general STEM classes, but it incorporates all of the above. We had just heard from your curriculum director that AP Biology is having a huge push. AP Euro is having a huge push in a lot of AP classes across the United States. Kids are starting to jump into these challenging roles. They want to further themselves and better themselves in education. And when I went to high school, it was no different. And being in ag didn't limit you to any educational preferences you could have. You could join as many APs as you want, and many students did, being in the top 10%, and so on and so forth. So the aspect that we do want to talk to you about tonight is the leadership portion of that three-circle model. You have your classroom, which I'm sure is what you guys are mostly worried about, and you have your SAE, that hands-on learning. But what exactly is this FFA, this For the Future of Agriculture, Future Farmers of America? What does it mean? And so we take a step back and we look at that, and a lot of times when we think of agriculture, we think of cows, sows, and plows, and not much more than that. But if I could, just by show of hands, if you work in the industry of agriculture, please raise your hand. Okay. If you rely on food, fiber, or fuel, please raise your hand. Yeah, the statistic is generally around 100%. And what we see here is the same thing that is happening in the United States and around the world. The industry of agriculture, the people that work in it, the people that produce our food, fiber, and fuel is declining, but our production is going up because of the technology and the capability that we have to produce more for the world. And I think Ms. Travato touched on it very briefly, but it is very important that we have to link agriculture to science, technology, engineering, and math, because it involves science, technology, engineering, and math. And to move away from the face value, Michael is here, and he's going to touch upon that part of the FFA that usually keeps us around and usually makes us aspire to be leaders.
Thank you very much, Zach. Like he said, my name is Michael Wetherall. I'm currently serving as the 2018-2019 state president for the Connecticut FFA Association. So I don't really know how I'm supposed to follow that up because Zach is one of my best friends, one of the greatest speakers I've ever met, and that's all from the Nonawag or Woodbury FFA chapter, I should say. That's one of the things that we teach, public speaking. Back in 2012, when I first started my journey with ASTE programs, or Agri-Science and Technology education, I could not get in front of anyone and speak. I remember I was a freshman in high school. I was going through a really hard time with my family. Unfortunately, we were going through a divorce, my parents were, I should say, and I didn't have a lot of self-confidence, and I didn't have a lot of people to believe in me. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it, but the FFA Creed, which is something that every FFA member learns in their freshman year of high school, it starts off as I believe. And a belief is something that I believe we should all have. And it's something that we do all have. We all believe in the future of something. And that's what agri-science pushes. We believe in the future of agriculture. A lot of us think, well, the future of agriculture, what is it made up of? And so many people think traditional agriculture, like Zach said, cows, sows, and plows. We're thinking of farming, rows of corn. But what people miss is the technology, the human skills, in all different aspects. For myself, I'm a business major in college. I'm not an agriculture major. I look to go into an agricultural career in the industry, but my primary focus is business. Because of the FFA in my journey, I was able to get my associate's degree in less than 2 years, and for free, completely for free. due to scholarships that I was given from the National FFA organization, the Connecticut FFA Foundation and Association, and just other people that believed in my future. So basically, I'm not wrapping up just yet because we'd love to answer any questions that you might have. But what I believe is that we need your help. We need to push for this program to go through smoothly, and we need for all these members that would be coming here to have the opportunity to have someone that believes in them, in their future. So I guess from here, we'd like to answer any questions that you might have about our Blue Jackets, about the program that we go through, because it does look a little funny. It hasn't changed since 1933. But yeah, any questions?
Yes. That's a very good question. Yeah, so around the country, some FFA programs and agri-science programs start all the way down in 7th grade, and that's those middle school programs. And those, usually in the South, that's what we see. We have one here in Connecticut, and that's at Wamogo. But we start off in high school, so freshman year, and we go through regular classes just as we do, and we go through ag. And what you can do in the FFA is, if you choose to progress and become a, let's say, in a larger role of leadership, then you can continue to do so until 4 years after you've graduated high school. So typically state officers or national officer candidates, national officers, tend to be in college, because in order to obtain the qualifications to do so, you have to achieve a certain number of SAE hours, that supervised agricultural experience, and that takes time. So in the leadership aspect of it, it does continue after high school, and so do those opportunities and ways to grow. Do you have anything to add, Michael?
So yeah, basically what Zach, just summing up what Zach said, the opportunities that we're given carry us throughout college and even outside of that. We have a very extensive FFA alumni and supporters program where not only past FFA members are allowed to be part of it, but parents, people from the community, administrators, and all people like can be part of our alumni program. And it has tons of benefits, including different scholarships that high school students are allowed to apply for, and college students, and so much more. So when we talk about FFA, it carries people out of high school and into their future careers. More questions? Yeah. Anyone?
I'm using my microphone. Yeah, I just wanted to know, when you talk about the scholarships and things like that, that obviously are a great contribution to your education, where does that, where do those finances come from? Are there dues-paying members? Do corporations or small or large farms contribute to the FFA? Or personal donations? I figure the money has to come from somewhere in order to be of benefit to receivers of scholarships.
That's very, very good question. That's true. One of the largest support groups that we find comes within the industry of agriculture, and those tend to be those corporations such as Monsanto, Dow AgroSciences, DuPont, Pioneer, which is now Corteva. They all merged together. CSX. So we have these big corporations that are in the agricultural industry that fund hopefully what will be their future employees, as the agricultural industry is made up of, well, I believe if the statistic is correct, 40% past FFA members. And then a lot of money does come from those small contributions, and every member is required to be dues paying. And there's a difference between state dues and national dues, and then there's what's called affiliation. So if you are a full affiliation, your dues would change, and your whole state, if our association became full affiliate, then the dues number would change, and students would have to pay a certain amount, and the state has to pay a certain amount. So it is very much run like a democracy in a sense. Money has to come from somewhere and go up the ladder to then be dispersed for all these leadership conferences and programs. But a very, very good amount of it comes from donations and alumni. A lot of the biggest support comes from alumni, because sometimes it's very hard to understand something unless you've gone through it yourself. So that's a question we're not too often asked, is where does your money come from?
There you go.
I think just before take another question, building off of that too, is not every student that's enrolled in an agri-science program in the state of Connecticut is required to be an FFA member. A lot of them do become FFA members because they see the opportunities that come through it. Yep, and the jackets. You can't beat a blue corduroy jacket. But they do have the opportunity to join, but they're not required. And that's a big part. Some of our inner city chapters, so Bridgeport, Sound School, there are members that can't pay the dues, they can't afford to, or they don't want to be a part of our program, our organization. But we don't turn them away from our leadership conferences and anything that we do have. We might have to pay a little extra for it, but giving these members the experiences is what we're all about. I mean, currently this year, I'm taking a year off of school because I want to fully commit myself to my position. So throughout this year, I'm not only working full-time as a manager in food service business, but I'm actually traveling throughout the state. Last year I traveled 30,000 miles, and this year I'm traveling hopefully about 35,000 miles all over the state every single day to inspire others and give opportunities. So another question right over here.
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, you mentioned the kind of the stereotypical association, the cows, plows, and sows association. And when you're trying to educate parents or students about some of the most exciting, kind of cutting-edge jobs available in agri-science, what are some of the ones that come to mind for you?
So, for example, and I could tailor this in with a very quick story, there are over 300 available job opportunities and titles within the field of agriculture. And there was this one instance where the USDA actually has a lot of pathobiologists or entomologists, whatever you want to call those wonderful, smart people that I will never be able to compare myself to. But there was this young lady who came from my past chapter, Woodbury, and she went to UConn. She had very good grades, but she was not the top of her class, and she applied for this position with about 6,000 other people for the USDA to be a microbiologist. And so she's competing against those big names such as Harvard and Yale and Princeton and these 4.0s. And so when she got down there, she had thought, oh man, well, this may not go so well. But they call her into the room and they say, hey, we got a question for you. When you were 15, you managed an alpaca farm. And she said, yes, I did. Can you tell us more about that? And needless to say, because of her different experience, she landed the job. And so what I'm trying to say is we absolutely push those higher thought of degrees, such as microbiology or chemistry. I think a lot of agriculture comes down to the molecular level of science. So when we think of things, whether they be genetically modified organisms or trying to make our agricultural commodities less subdued to the weather, such as we see in North Carolina with the hurricane, inventing innovations and promoting growth through technology is a huge thing, and it's all in the field of agriculture. So most of those jobs have an IST or an ology after them, those 300 jobs, and I think that's important. But why I told you that story is because at the end of the day, no matter what a student should choose to go into, they already have 4-5 years of hands-on experience in the field, and that sets them apart automatically. Because anyone can come away with a degree. You could get a degree. You could be in the bottom of your class, but you still get that degree, and you can go on and you could put that degree on someone's desk, and they say, okay, what are you going to do with it? What can you apply from sitting in a classroom that someone else could apply from going out there and tending to, whether it be plants, animals, or being in a lab?
The other quick question I had was, do we have either of you gentlemen to thank for the excellent dairy bar at UConn?
No, that's been there a while. But it's good ice cream. Yes, sir.
All right. I have another question. So, as part of those 3 circles, I feel like I sort of understand the SAE happens outside of school, whether you're working, doing an internship or whatever, and that a student, an agri-science student, takes 2 classes roughly during each year, whether it's plant science or mechanics or whatever it is they're doing. So where does the FFA part fit in? Is it part of the class? Is it outside? Is it like an assembly once every so often?
Do you want?
Sure. Yeah. So we have these great events that we call career development events, so CDEs and LDEs, which are leadership development events. And this is where we put to the test everything that we learn as students. Anyone is able to compete in them, and it's sort of seen a lot as more similar to 4-H, where they have competitions, they have showing. But what we do, for myself at least, I went for forestry management. And what I learned in my classroom, in my forestry class in high school, was anything that you'd need to know to run an effective timber stand. So evaluating the trees, making it profitable, and how you could compare it to other careers. So these events are, I don't know how many we have exactly. Zach might be able to tell you the number on that. But they are specialized to a lot of the different careers that you would see in agriculture. For instance, dairy evaluation, livestock evaluation, food science. There's a bunch of them. Zach could tell you a little more about it, but this is where you take your SAEs, you take your classroom instruction, and you put it to the test. They compete against each other, and it's not to see who's best, but to see who's learning. It shows who's learning, and we get a positive outcome from it every single year that we've been doing it. And this has been happening since 1928. I mean, it's been a long time. Our organization was founded from white males, unfortunately, and since 1965 and 1969, when females and African Americans were allowed into our program, it has grown ever since, and it's been rewarding. But what I was trying to say was since 1928, our organization has been founded as a place where students can go and compete and show what they know. So at home, they might live on a farm. They're able to come and compete against other students saying, hey, this is what we know, this is what we've learned. Let's put it to the test. Let's see who can do it the best. It's almost like a sports team for us.
Yeah. One other thing that happens is, so we obviously are officers. So now the big question is, what do officers do? So now that extra involvement that we see can come at the chapter level. So we have chapters, and that would be with SHPOG. SHPOG would be a chapter. And so they would elect a chapter officer team. Anyone that's an FFA member that meets a certain qualification, usually it's your chapter degree, can run for chapter office. And what those officers do is they put on FFA meetings for the rest of the members. So when I was attending in high school, I was elected chapter president when I was a junior. And so for the other 355 members, we would put on a meeting every month, talk about everything that we're going to do for the rest of the month, illustrate how everything's going with a budget and a POA, a program of activities. We like our acronyms. And so at the base level, another thing that happens is at a very young age, FFA members are prompted to become leaders, to run the show. It's coined as the largest youth-run organization in the world, with 669,000 members in over 8,600 of these chapters across the nation. So that's another aspect, and then obviously they can go up the ladder. And when we were state officers, Michael is a state officer running executive meetings, making decisions for the entire state, so all of our over 3,000 members are impacted by the decision. So should we decide to do a conference or not do a conference, they could go or they could not go. And so what I mean by that is, beyond the CDEs and LDEs, there's that really there's that core of leadership, and that comes with the basic principles of running a meeting like you do here. And I'm sure you've heard of parliamentary procedure. So we have to be, to a certain degree, knowledgeable of parliamentary procedure, and we run a meeting accordingly. So Robert's rules are like our good book, and that's another way. And to speak on the CDE thing, I think this is a very cool story. We had a team from my chapter that was in the top 10 in the nation. So every year, one team from each category is elected. So each chapter can send as many teams as they want for agronomy, dairy evaluation, livestock, nursery landscape, and if you win at the state level, you go to National Convention. Now, National Convention is a magical place because there's over 67,000 members in blue jackets, all competing. It's the third largest convention in the United States of America after the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention.
Wow.
So the largest youth convention. And so we go to Indianapolis this year or Louisville, Kentucky in past years, and those students compete against each other. So a team from California, a team from Alaska, a team from Iowa against a team from Connecticut. Now, one of our teams was in the top 10, and they had the opportunity to go to England and Scotland and visit dairy production out there, completely sponsored. And it's happened with our floriculture team. They went to the Netherlands, visited greenhouses, the floriculture industry in another country. And I think that the opportunities are endless. And so in another level of involvement, if you do well in these CDEs, if you do well as a leader in a certain position, you have the opportunities to go places. I think Michael and I have been to maybe over 20 states because of this program, and most of it's paid for and sponsored.
Wow.
So they're good experiences.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry to talk your ear off.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think you said that before, not all ag science students are, not all ag science students are required to be FFA members. Are any ag science students required to be FFA members?
That depends on the curriculum of the school. So a lot of, for example, I know this best because it's where I came from. Woodbury requires you to go to an FFA event each quarter, making you
Requires who to go?
FFA members. So if you're an FFA member at the school, you have to go to one of the FFA sponsored events every quarter. And because there's so many, it is rather easy to do so. And so what Michael meant is we have, as of last year, we had 3,522 ASTE students, so those agri-science and technology education students in the classrooms, but we had 3,230 FFA members because not every chapter has that requirement, therefore not every student is considered a active member. And so we have some terms in the FFA that can overlap, such as active member versus member, and based on the curriculum of each chapter, determining what exactly that is.
I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. It sounds like a wonderful program. What I'm trying to understand is, are ag science students required to be FFA members?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in order to be a true agri-science program sponsored by the state of Connecticut, the program does have to have the three-circle model as part of their statute. So a 7th grade classroom like I'm teaching right now, having 7th and 8th graders taking an agri-science course, no, they do not have to be members. But if we have a full service, full sponsored agriculture program that we have through with the state of Connecticut, yes, they do have to be members. So I wanted to make sure we were on the same page with that. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there you go.
Thank
Maybe
you.
some service.
Yeah,
This might be for her. So will we be able to have a chapter here at Chapag? I guess I was just confused.
No, that's fine.
So will we be able to have one here?
Absolutely, and it will be, we are required to.
Okay.
So yes, we are
Okay.
required to, and I could, of course, show you the area in the state section of agri-science programs of what that looks like. But the three-circle model that I was showing you this evening actually is what an agriculture education true program that gets funding will be required to have. And it's a wonderful thing, and it's an awesome thing, and it changed my life when I was 14, and here I am a teacher now. So it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Really
And you guys are doing a great job. Really, very engaging.
Any other questions
So
for
I just
all
looked.
of us?
I just looked at your website. It's just for clear. It's $7 a year for membership, so it's quite affordable.
It is.
So you're starting work on our program here as a current or past.
So I am an
FFA member?
alumni.
Alumni.
Yes, I am an alumni.
So the way an FFA program or chapter starts at a school, is that something that is the responsibility of a faculty or of the chapters developed, and there are state leaders such as Michael who then descend on that and nurture and grow and establish an FFA chapter so that it goes from zero to being a functional part of a three-circle program? Or is it rather external? How does it happen, I guess is my question.
Well, first we have Milton Nodish, our state FFA leader. He actually will actually have him come, and they will actually work with us to develop the charter.
Okay.
We actually have to sit and develop an actual working charter. We come up with our actual name, and we will actually develop what that core charter is going to look like. It is also, we have to work with Harold Mackin at the state. He actually will then get notification as well. And after that has all been put together, our representative on the East Coast, he is actually Kevin Keith, and he will get notified, and then it goes to national level, and then we get chartered. So it's a process. It's quite a very legal process, and one that I cannot wait to see unfold.
But it seems very integral. It's not peripheral at all, obviously, to the program.
It is. It is sewn at the core of our program. You're welcome.
If I could quickly add to that, one interesting thing, Mr. Votto mentioned Mr. Mackin. Mr. Mackin is our ASTE director in the Department of Education, and it is, to my best knowledge, that he is the only one. We are the only state in the country that has a position like that can focus on not only agri-science centers, but those technical schools as well, the CTE programs, career and technical education programs. I'm sure you guys have heard of Perkins funding, 1984, Carl D. Perkins. All of those schools, such as the ASTE programs and those tech programs, fall under that. And so we have a person in the Department of Ed, Mr. Mackin, who can handle that and can focus on that, and that helps us strive. Last year he put together a program, essentially a curriculum program for agri-science and technology education centers, and numerous states across the country saw it, and they're trying to follow it. Connecticut is recognized as so those three circles are huge. Contributor to our success has to be the ag education piece. And it's very true, and it rings true across the country.
Obviously, you, Zach, and Mike have taken your commitment to a higher level, but what would you say the average or typical time commitment for a high school member is? I mean, are there after-school meetings? Do most of the students travel to the conferences? How is all that laid out?
All right, so I guess it depends on the chapter as well. So Chapag could decide whether they wanted meetings during school. So for myself, FFA was almost looked at as like a club, so we had different clubs throughout the school. FFA was seen as a club where we would be able to go during a set period of time and have our chapter meetings. So 150 of us would go. We'd have the chapter meetings, and I was lucky enough to be able to run that. It also depends on the member's personal interest. Not at every chapter are they required to go to every meeting or anything like that. So it really does depend on Chapag and what they decide they want to do. We like to lay the foundation for what our chapters can do, meaning our leadership conferences. We put on 3 or 4 of them during the year at the state level, where we invite students from all over the state, all of our 19 publicly funded chapters currently, to come and really learn more about the leadership portion. So if a school wants to send 5 to 10 kids to come and learn about various things, like I've given a workshop on comfort, character, and confidence before, so teaching people to be comfortable, or teaching our members to be comfortable with themselves, knowing that they are individual when it comes to their character, and have confidence and show who they are to others. They're more than welcome to, and most chapters do send kids because they think it's a valuable portion of time. But not every member is required to go to every leadership conference, and it's normally students that are excelling and students that volunteer themselves to go to these. So I hope that answered your question.
So guys, will you come back if we ask you to come back?
Of course. I mean, I travel, like I said, a lot, and I love making trips out to Western Connecticut because I am from far Eastern Connecticut, so I'll come out once a week if it means that I can push things through.
I think we do less than once a week. I'm trying to respect your travel.
Sounds good to me too.
See you in January.
We're gonna run out of questions here, but no, I think I'm sure as our program continues to take shape and we add some structure to the skeleton that we've got, probably we'll come up with more meaningful questions, more questions, period, because I think we could just keep going, is my sense. As the more we sit here, the more we'll think about things, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great idea for coming to see us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So thank you very, very much, Zach and Michael, for doing that. And I feel honored to have them here because they really help show what this program does for others, for students. So really, thank you. I just wanted to touch on one thing when it comes to service, which I really wanted to talk about just for a moment, because with our Chapag core values and guiding beliefs, there is an essence that I saw there with service and outreach, and the FFA is a wonderful way that people do that, and they do service and they do community outreach. Like we had an FFA student go to Washington Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C., and this is just an example. I wanted to share that with you before we continued, and because it's important to understand how amazing the service and the community service that they give back, not only at the local level, but at a national level as well, like Habitats for Humanity and the Meals for the Hungry. We had a student 2 years ago raise $60,000. I don't want to do a disservice to the student. Actually, she was the girl in the video that built the technical system in her garage that won nationals. Homeless Meals for the Hungry, and packaged them right here in the northwest corner of Connecticut. And just because of a leadership event that happened in Washington, D.C., where as an FFA student, they go and they give back to the community without looking for anything in return. So it's another piece that I feel is so important to share with you tonight, to help you realize why this three-circle model, and I understand why this three-circle model is why the state of Connecticut has that as part of it, because of its importance to the kids to give back, the students to give back to the community. Yes. Yes, you can. Sure. Sure.
He has to leave, and we'd like an update on the building. Otherwise,
No problem.
little minor detail in the ag program, just this thing.
No problem.
Greg?
Yeah, we're going to go from cows, plows, and sows to steel structure and site work. I can tell you that where we are, we're very focused on getting this construction to start on time in November, and in order to get there, we need to complete bidding and accept bids. In order to accept the bids, we need to actually complete them. The job is under bid right now. The bids have been extended through October 4th. We expect to be opening them on October 4th and making a decision to accept them on October 15th. There's one piece of work that needs to be done on the critical path in order to allow us to accept the bids, and that is approval of the current set of documents, the construction documents by the Office of State Traffic Administration, OSTA. OSTA has the file. We expect their 2-week period within which to review and answer expires on Wednesday. We expect an answer from them in the next couple of days. So we hope to be on track for accepting the bids on the 15th of October.
Craig, what was the reason for the extension to the 4th?
The bidders, we had bidders that wanted more time.
The bidders,
Yeah, the bidders had requested it. There was first an extension to the 27th of September and then to October 4th.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I'm just wondering how you feel about, have you received, or you're engaged with several?
I can't tell you because the bids don't come in until, they're due on October 4th. So we won't be getting them till probably.
But do you feel like
post
there's
October 4th.
interest? Like, are we going to have bids? That's what
No,
I'm-
we expect to have bids. There's been a lot of interest expressed.
Okay.
I
just, right.
So we didn't extend it because nobody was there.
Or it
did
was
we?
the one company, it's like, so I just was wondering if we're feeling good.
Well,
about that.
the idea is what you want is you want multiple bids in each trade and in each area of the construction, so that you have some items to some people to choose from in order to select your low responsible bidder. So that's what the status is of that. So I think we're on track, and we expect to be there on the 15th, and if not, that's where we'll be. So that was really the first item that I think the major item that we're focused on right now. This evening, Bob will take you through the. No, you won't. I will take you through where we are on it. Pretty much we're on. We're on track. If you've seen the report, we actually approved tonight the expenditure of $640,014.56, of which $621,000 of that was for phase one phase one work. Phase one, of course, was demolition and remediation, which has been completed. We expect another bill shortly. It does not appear that we've spent very much, if any, of the contingencies that were set aside. So we expect to come in under the guaranteed maximum price. It might be 20, 30, 40,000 under the guaranteed maximum price where we're hoping to be. So every dollar we pick up there, we'll have to deal with some other contingency down the line. And so that really is the status of expenditures. We had a couple of small expenditures tonight for some work. Lanigan Company had done. The DEEP required us to hire them for a third-party review. They did their review. They're completed. And this was the last little piece of that we paid for. There was a little bit of more environmental work that we're still paying for to Fuss and O'Neill that had done the phase 2 environmental site assessment and they were doing oversight for the abatement. But most of that money, $621,000, was directly attributable to the phase 1 demolition and abatement work. So that's more or less where we are. Bob, I think, has got this, the report. If you have any questions about it, of where we are in expenditures, let me know. And that is about where we are at AgStem Construction.
Any questions for Greg? Thank you, Greg. Appreciate your patience.
No problem. Thank
We know
you
you
very
gotta
much.
go.
I'm sorry I have to leave early.
It's okay. So we'll get back. Lori, thank you for your patience.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Greg, are we going to need you, or will somebody else be able to help us on executive session item?
The executive session item is going to go off because I meant to mention that because we have not received the indication that the union has ratified the contract yet. We did? Bob told me we didn't.
All right, so can the superintendent take us through that then in executive session? I assume?
Yeah, the superintendent probably could, but I was told as of tonight that we weren't going to have it. Otherwise, I would have requested we do that at the beginning of the meeting.
It's your call, big guy.
When's our next meeting? Why don't we put it off for the next meeting when we can all
October.
Because, you know, the problem is when you negotiate a contract like that, you're required to go and support, you know, the tentative agreement that was reached. So I kind of, for me not to be there to support the tentative agreement would be a problem for me. So I'd like to put that off for another meeting, and I'm sorry, I just unfortunately tonight.
But the next meeting is the 1st, which is, yeah, it's a week from now. So will that cause any issues with the custodians? Well, they're expecting us to do this tonight. If we wait a week, are they going to be okay?
I don't think it's going to be a problem if we take a week, because they approved it on very, very quickly. I mean, we just reached this tentative agreement late last week, or middle of last week. So this was a pretty quick approval, and I didn't expect it tonight. I had not heard, so.
Okay.
I move that we put the executive session item off to our next meeting, October 1st.
Have a second? Thank you, Michelle. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you all.
All right. Lori, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, to end, I'd like to talk to you briefly about what's coming up next in brief. So we are been very busy here this past month, about 3.5 weeks. So aside from going, and we have on September 28th, we're starting to build our relationship with industry. So we have our first meeting on September the 28th with the Institute of American Indian Studies, where they have an ethnobotany portion to their program there. We are going to start to make connections with sciences, with industry that's involved with all areas of agri-science, whether it be ethnobotany or whether it be technology or doing research as well. The dates have been set for all of our sending schools, all set for the month of October. So every single one is set for us to go and recruit. So we are rolling. We are excited and we are rolling. So we're really excited to showcase and express to the students at those schools what Chippewa has to offer with the experience of the school in the year to come. We have partnered up, and this is something that we want to do, is to continue to have partnerships with the ongoing communication with the schools and with the guidance counselors and with people that have questions in the community. Parents have been emailing. There's been a lot of interest, and guidance counselors are reaching out, and even parents are reaching out from different districts. And the sending districts are actually, we're getting phone calls, we're getting emails, and we're responding to them and sharing with the parents what they want to know. So there's a lot of good things happening there. We're doing our first, what I call cross-curricular connection, and we're going with Project Lead the Way to Manufacturing Mania coming up in Southbury. And students, I'm taking students we're going from both classes, and we're going to be exploring this event that's happening there. So with some innovations for future, and it's actually a program that's geared towards middle school students. So this is happening very soon. My involvement recently to help set the stage for our future students here at Chippewa's Agri-Science programs is I actually am involved quite heavily in the FFA portion as a superintendent for the events that happen at the state and the regional level, and the floriculture competition at the Eastern States Exposition, where 18 states of FFA members who are in agri-science programs actually come and compete. And that helps set up for our students to have more opportunities as well, because being involved in that makeup and understanding what is needed for them to be successful is really important to me. And so I contribute my time to that as well. Recently I visited Burnham School in a collaborative event where they were looking into going more green with more compost innovations with their garden, and they wanted some help looking at different things with that. So I've been visiting them and talking to them about different opportunities and what exists out there, like grants. So another thing is The Connecticut Department of Education has a Serve Safe certification, and I'm actually going and getting certified with that. We are having food science here, so it's very important that we look at these different avenues that we can make sure that we are setting the stage the right way. And Serve Safe through the Connecticut Department of Education is where I'm going very shortly. And then shortly, about another month or so ago, is going to be November 2nd. UConn, we have a lot of partnerships that we're working on right now, and UConn we already have a very good working relationship with. And UConn puts on a career development event there, right on campus, that students in the state compete at, and I superintend and judge that competition as well to help our students here at our program be more successful, so they understand what UConn is offering for their programs. So lots of good things. Been very busy. I open up the floor to any questions. If you have any more, I'd love to answer them. Yes, Michael.
You mentioned the connection with UConn, and this evening when we were talking about AP courses,
yes,
we're hearing about the ECE opportunities.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, does AgSTEM have any ECE opportunities?
So I actually...
College credit?
Yes, actually, agriculture ECE courses are very much at the UConn level. I'm an adjunct professor in 2 ECE courses, Fundamentals of Horticulture and Floral Art. And there are other avenues that other teacher content areas like animal science and food science can get certified in, and quite likely people are already certified in those as we explore teachers of the future. So that is something that is very important, because setting up these students not for just tomorrow but for their future, and having college credit going in and being in our program, to me is quite important to me. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
When you visit the sending schools,
yes,
we had, part of the analysis was the wait list. Was students who were wait listed to Nonawag who obviously was not able to get into Nonawag.
Yes.
So as I understand it, those 10th graders that are current 10th graders now who were wait listed could still enter, or I should say 9th graders who are going to be rising 10th graders can still enter our program.
That's correct.
Okay, so have we reached out to that because we know who those names are.
So we have worked, we are working with guidance counselors and actually spreading the word, and we're continuing to work on that avenue. So that is something that is definitely on our radar. So it is being worked on as we speak.
You want to say?
Part of that is we are at the discretion of other schools as we send out the information. They have the freedom of, their children's, FERPA rights. We can't tread on their educational rights, where therefore they cannot just give us over names and information, whatever. However, Lori's been working with them, sharing documents so they can push it out. But there are some limitations on how far we can reach into that.
Right.
They know who those students are. We don't. We just know them as a number. I hate to say it.
Right.
Right.
So the guidance counselors, for example, when I've called the sending schools, I have made sure that the guidance counselors understand the ones that are having the 8th grade students, because they know who those students were last year. I have been sharing that information with them and letting them know and sending them the documents so they can share, because they can't release the names directly to me. We have had people reach out to us, and we have had some very good interest. So we can do that once a parent calls us and emails us. That's different. But we've gone through the guidance counselors for what we've done thus far.
Lisa.
When's the application deadline?
So we're working actually on coming up with a complete program list for how the application process will go. And that's something that Principal Gallo, myself, and Teresa, and Superintendent Bennett will actually put together for then a committee. I believe there's an education committee that will actually look at that. So there'll be multiple people looking at how exactly that will progress.
So those deadlines will probably line up with the private school deadlines for next year. I mean, because that's when everybody's going to be looking at
Agreed.
schools
Right.
and wanting to go to, whether it was the Gunnery or Chippewa. So,
So that is something that I will make a note of, and when the education committee comes together and asks for opinions on dates, I'll share that with them.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to
Good.
be here. Truly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so keeping with the theme of agriculture, agri-science program, so you're up.
Mine feels hollow in comparison to the depth we just saw, but it really is. This is an opportunity where I get to celebrate Lori Tavado's her efforts and the work that she's done with Teresa DeBrito and with Kim Gallo. They really have been working on the curriculum. They're trying to make certain it's accessible. We recognize the need to put it out there that this is going forward. We are opening the doors in fall 2019. So we want to make certain that that's just repeated again and again. We have had inquiries from some of our sending towns. They've been emailing me directly. We have a couple that were homeschooled who are looking to now come to our agri-science. So to say that some people who were not even in the public school sector are now looking to become part of that in order to join into the experience that you've created for our students. So that's been fantastic. Additionally, Lori did not mention there's an advisory board that is part of our agri-science requirements, and that is some of the local agricultural industry leaders coming together to help guide us. Also looking at our curriculum, moving us forward, creating some of those connections, looking at some of those internships. So there's been a lot of legwork. Thank goodness she has a lot of energy because she has gone in about 16 different directions at one time and really is just propelling it forward to make certain that we have children in those seats that want to be there. And on October 4th, I will be presenting at the Gun Library, Memorial Library, as mentioned earlier. So we're all going on the road show. October 4th.
Can I just ask you a question about that meeting at the gun? What's your vision for that, Megan?
I think our vision is to put out to the community, take away some of the miscommunication that's been out there, to highlight some of the accomplishments that have happened. We've kind of gone into a little bit of a vacuum where it came to information. As we were building, I think some of the things that have happened before, we've put a lot of information out and then have had to retract or to make certain that there's understanding. So this is really a chance for the community to ask questions. This is a chance to clarify a lot of the misconceptions that may be out there. And now we have a lot more to discuss. We have a curriculum to discuss. We have a vision to discuss. And I think that's what the hope is. And we start at the Gun Memorial Library, and then we will spread to the other towns as well.
Any other questions? Julie?
Just a quick one. I sort of asked this once before, but can we go participate at a sending town and listen to what Lori says directly to the students? Is that allowed, or would that be awkward, or?
Some of the presentations are in the evening, and we certainly welcome you to come see, how we market, what's being said. I know that we're also talking about inviting people here to Chippewa itself, so we can even make it a little more local if you want to see some things so you don't have to travel. But no, for us, the more that we also educate you, you're our ambassadors and can only help strengthen other people's understanding and clarify things that may have been misconstrued.
So can Lori send the schedule out so we know where she's presenting and what town?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
Thank
can
you.
ask that.
Just one more question. Has Nanawag been very good about reaching out, Megan, to you about their connections that they already have in the towns that will become our catch basin? Thinking of businesses that they have a relationship with that'll now be feeding into Chippewa and our program. Because I would think that they have quite a long standing list.
Luckily, we have some administrators who have some nice connections to Nanawag, so we've definitely been exploiting some of those things. But it is also, there's been a lot of shifts in Nanawag right now. They're having their own building project. They have a new superintendent as well. So in their shifts, we're relying on some of our old relationships in order to help us with some of those connections, some of those opportunities, and seeing how we can move forward.
Yep. All right, so back to the top, National Honor Society. The floor is still yours.
All right. Trying not to let you get tired of me right now. But I do want to say we, in talking with the faculty at Chippewa, really looking at some of the requirements for our National Honor Society. And one of the things that we have really impressed upon with all of our staff is that there's academic integrity. And that's part of looking and relooking at the requirements to be part of the National Honor Society. And as we were reviewing some of the application, and yes, there's the academic part that we have high standards, but there's also character standards. There's also conduct. It's part of what is the legacy they are leaving here at Chippewa. And so in the conversations and in looking at how do we increase that application process to know, have students made mistakes, but they learned from it? So therefore, just because you got in trouble when you were a freshman doesn't knock you out of contention. But there are some things that if they're integrity violations, might. So what we, in talks with the staff and talks with administration, is moving towards more of an essay. Giving them the opportunity to respond to 3 quotes, giving them the opportunity to talk about something that happened that was a misstep, because every student makes a mistake. But how are we getting to learn from those mistakes? And how are they owning their errors, and how did they grow? And we're taking a look at some of that as we go into the process of the application. So it's really making certain that we've stepped it up. We're asking them to do more work. It is one where we're saying, so prove to us, if this is something you really want, why do you deserve it? What are some of the qualifications you own? So it has been a very comprehensive process. It has been one that multiple disciplines have given their feedback on, and I'm feeling that as we go through the process, we're going to really feel that we're bringing in, it's always been a badge of honor, and we want to make certain that that integrity is kept, and we're also giving students an opportunity that this is a learning experience as well. So.
Michelle?
I was just wondering, a National Honor Society is a national, I don't know if it's actually a society, I guess it is, but are there guidelines?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're not
we
just,
okay. We didn't get all willy-nilly.
Yeah.
So there is the leadership that they have to write about. There is the service. There is the character, as well as that written explanation. What are we, affirmation of integrity, and also something for those who may be applying for a second time and how to get in. So it's absolutely still aligned to those requirements. So we are still adhering, but we want to hear the narrative behind their education.
So are these changes being made, or are we, or is it still something that you're deciding with the team?
No, the high school staff got together. We're able to review it during staff meetings, so that at this time we do have buy-in, and so we are moving forward with changing the application for this year. And I do have a copy if anybody wants to review and see what it looks like, and take a look as far as what you understand for alignment as well.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Moving to policies. First reading on 3281, school fundraisers.
yes. So 3281, let me just find my, it's here somewhere. It's just slow, thanks. So this is a policy that we already have. It was 3281 called school fundraisers. The yellow language is the new language, and it's all about crowdfunding. This was brought to the policy committee's attention because apparently some of our teachers have already used crowdfunding, and so we just wanted to make sure that there were some guidelines on the books. And the language that is here came from CABE as a suggestion, just to sort of have some guidelines, just to make sure that the teachers are aware that if you're doing any kind of fundraising for the school, that you need to involve the administrators and they need to be aware, and that the money goes to the school. So that's what this policy is all about. Stephanie?
Is there a limit to the amount that anyone is allowed to crowdfund for a specific project, or does that not fall under?
Gee, I don't. Wouldn't that be a nice problem to have? I don't know that limits have ever come into the discussion. I don't think it's ever been necessary. I mean,
but it could be like anything. Like it could be
$1 million.
any particular, but like and for anything. Like that's not.
Well, it has to, if I may, it has to be run by the superintendent. So, I assume.
Oh, I thought. Sorry, I didn't read it then properly because I thought it could be just a teacher for like a thing in their classroom or something. It has to be.
I'm sorry. It says the building principal must be informed.
Oh. But a teacher could be doing this,
right.
but they just need to
right.
They need to have permission, because we do have guidelines in our other policies about for example, with our 3 elementaries, them not getting completely
right. That's kind of what
out
was
of
in my mind of like
track from one another. We want the experience that the students are having K-5 to be similar enough that when they come up here, that they've had an equitable experience. But this policy doesn't really address that. That's in one of our other policies, I believe, gifts, grants, and something else. I don't remember. We have another policy, but we wanted to make sure crowdfunding, which is brand new, showed up somewhere, and so we stuck it in here with our. It was very small. You can see we had like 4 sentences for school fundraisers, and we decided to add it here instead of adding a whole new policy just about crowdfunding. Sure. Jim?
I move we approve 3281 as first policy of the board.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed, abstained. The motion passes unanimously. Policy 3281. Now, the next policy, Michelle, I couldn't see it on the agenda, but I didn't see it in the packet.
It's not in the packet.
Okay.
So, yes, and I wanted to just take a minute to sort of explain, and I am so bummed that Greg left because this is mostly for him. But anyway, this policy came to our attention through a one of our policy highlights. And as a committee, we just sort of passed it through because it was some mandated language about posting contracts. So the negotiations policy it had a new state requirement that administrator contracts be posted with the town or something like that. But and if you have your Chromebooks or your computers with you, and could take a moment to go to the Region 12 website. Actually, I had it open and then I lost it. To go to our policies. I just wanted to show everyone something because this actually is not a policy that we have, even though it's listed in our index. And I was on the phone with Vin Mastrar from CABE, who's like the policy guru. This has confused me for a long time, and I feel like I finally understand. He actually, after our conversation, he said that he's had a lot of districts call him before, and he's going to change. He's going to change the way it shows up. But if you go to the Region 12 website, you go to the school Board of Education and Policy, and you should get to a page that looks kind of like this, where we have the policy. Yep. So if you click on the left, I showed this to Greg like 2 weeks ago, and he was like, oh my gosh, I've never done that. So if you click on the 4000s, that's where I'd like you to go. Over to the right, you'll get the whole table of contents or index for the 4000s, which is really helpful if you're searching for something but you're not really sure what the right word to search is, because there's a search function. So if you want to just put in discipline, for example, you'll get hits on hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds, but quite a few policies. But if you're not really sure what you're looking for, but you know it has to do with students, then you could just look in the index. So if you scroll down in the 4000s, you'll see as you get to the middle and towards the end, there are a bunch of policies that say T after it or A after it. These are actually, and they're not highlighted. So if you'll notice, there's no blue highlight there. It is because it is technically not a policy that we have. And the T means it's covered under the teacher's contract. And what Vin told me is that he leaves these here in the index so that if you're looking, if you wanted to answer a question, let's say you were wondering, I don't know, you had a question about visitation and going on conferences as a teacher, you would look here and then you would realize, oh, okay, it's covered in the contract. I have to go to the contract to answer that question. So that's why he leaves all of these topics in the index, even though it is not actually a policy that we have. CABE has a policy, but contracts supersede policy, so therefore we don't have that particular policy. It's a little confusing, and I don't think I would design it that way. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the 4000s, there's a legend, and after our conversation, he's thinking about putting that legend at the top. And I told him, I said, you know, I think I would actually add the language saying these are not actually policies, but because it's not very evident, it's numbered. It's got a policy number, so it's confusing. So anyway, you can see that the T's are for the teacher contract, A's are for the administrator's contract, and so on. So that is why that policy is not on the agenda. There was a change in the law. CABE let us know. It is for our lawyers who negotiate our contracts to know that update. I guess they just wanted us to be aware. It did make me want, something came to my attention though that I thought might be worth talking about as a board. We don't have to decide now, but in a lot of other districts, Vin told me, they do have the contracts because they're public documents somewhere online. So that if you did want to go and answer your own question, once you saw that it was in the contract, you would actually be able to then go see the contract. And I don't believe ours are online. It would probably be under the business office. Anybody who wants to see it can request it because it's a public document. And Vin said that districts are moving in the direction of putting them on online, I think probably just to save time so that people can answer their own questions and don't have to keep coming into the office. So it's something we might want to think about. I asked him if there were any downsides to that, and he said, well, I can't really think of any, and it's public anyway, so just maybe for future thought, we can think about whether we want them there and whether that would be useful. I think it might be a little helpful. So that's all. Jim?
So I'm confused.
Yeah. It's confusing.
Is 4135.3, is it something that you want the board to look at or not?
It's not a policy. We can't look at it.
Can't look at it.
No.
Well, there is no policy.
There's no policy.
So why is it on our agenda?
Well, we thought it was a policy.
Okay.
Because it was in the index, and they sent us an update, and we were going to update it.
They sent us an update called 41.35.
Yep.
4135.3?
Yep.
But it's not something you think we should add as a policy?
We can't because it's covered under the teacher contract. I told him, I was like, then why did you send us the update of this law? Because I can show you what it
No, it's
looked
fine.
like.
I'm just trying to understand.
So it just had a little paragraph saying, you know, because of the June 2018 session, contracts now have to be posted online. The administrator's contracts, I think, is what it dealt with. So it's something that
Okay.
the negotiations might want to know that. Our legal, our lawyers who negotiate the contracts might want to know that, but it's not actually a policy. And I asked him, I mean, once a topic is covered by the contract, it supersedes any policy, so therefore there's no point or reason to have the policy, I guess is what they're saying.
But did you also say that he said that as of June, certain contracts, perhaps the administrator's contract, are supposed to be online? Yeah.
Well, they have to be posted with the town, I think is what or given to the clerk to post to the town. I can get the
Okay, all right.
language for you. I'm pretty sure when that came up, Bob knew that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we had a requirement that all contracts have to be, there's like a 30-day notice or
Yeah.
posting period, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, so Jim,
I move to adjourn.
on second?
Second.
All right, so moved. We're out.